The 5 men arrested at the Watergate complex on the 17th of June, 1972, weren't looking for Democratic campaign strategies. They were searching for something far more explosive, documents that Barry Goldwater had hidden in Larry O'Brien's office. Safe documents that could prove who really killed John F. Kennedy. This is the story of how America's greatest political scandal was actually a desperate hunt for evidence that could have rewritten history. Find the Goldwater file. Everything else is secondary. Those were the exact words Howard Hunt spoke to the Watergate burglars 3 hours before their arrest, according to James McCord's deathbed confession in 1993. For 20 years, the world believed Watergate was about political espionage. The truth was far darker. Before I reveal how Goldwater orchestrated Nixon's downfall to protect the Kennedy evidence, subscribe if you want to know the real stories behind America's political scandals. Comment below. Do you think Nixon knew who killed JFK? It began in March 1972, when John Dean informed President Nixon of an extraordinary intelligence report. Larry O'Brien, chairman of the Democratic National Committee, had allegedly received a package from an anonymous source containing photocopies of classified documents related to the Kennedy assassination. The source, Dean reported, was believed to be someone close to Goldwater. Nixon's reaction, captured on the White House taping system, was immediate and visceral. Goldwater? That son of a bitch has been sitting on evidence all these years? Get it. I don't care how. Just get it. The president's desperation wasn't about political advantage. It was about survival. Nixon knew something the public didn't, that the Kennedy assassination evidence implicated not just the CIA and the mob, but also key figures who were still in government, including some in his own administration. Charles Colson, Nixon's special counsel, later revealed in sealed testimony that Nixon believed the documents could expose Operation Mongoose II, a continuation of the Cuban assassination program that had morphed into domestic operations. The president was convinced that if these documents surfaced, half of Washington would be indicted, including himself. But why would Goldwater, a Republican icon, hide potentially damaging documents with the Democrats? The answer lay in a secret meeting between Goldwater and O'Brien in January 1972, witnessed only by a single aide who came forward after both men's deaths. Barry came to my office at night, O'Brien reportedly told his aide. He had a briefcase and a strange request. He wanted me to hold on to something, said it was insurance against people who were getting too powerful. He said, "Larry, we may be political opponents, but we're both Americans. If something happens to me, make sure these see daylight." The briefcase contained explosive material. Photographs of E. Howard Hunt and Frank Sturgis in Dallas on the 22nd of November, 1963. CIA cables discussing executive action against American targets. Financial records showing payments from defense contractors to key Warren Commission members. And most damning, a tape recording of Lyndon Johnson from the 24th of November 1963, saying, "Make sure Ruby understands dead men tell no tales." Goldwater had been collecting this evidence since 1964, using his military and intelligence contacts to piece together the conspiracy. But by 1972, he sensed danger. Several witnesses he'd been protecting had died mysteriously. His phones were tapped. His home had been burglarized twice, with nothing taken but everything searched. They're closing in. Goldwater told his trusted aide, Dean Birch, "Nixon's getting paranoid, asking questions about what I know. I need to put this somewhere he'd never think to look." The irony was perfect, hiding evidence of Republican crimes with the Democratic opposition. O'Brien, who had his own suspicions about Dallas, agreed to safeguard the materials. Understanding their historic importance transcended party politics. But Nixon's intelligence network was extensive. By May 1972, intercepts of Goldwater's communications revealed references to the Dallas package and O'Brien's insurance. G. Gordon Liddy, planning the operation, told his team they were looking for photographs and recordings that could damage national security code for the Kennedy evidence. The first Watergate break-in on May 28 failed to find the materials. The burglars searched O'Brien's office, but couldn't locate the safe Goldwater had described. They planted bugs, hoping to overhear its location. When those bugs malfunctioned, a second entry was ordered for June 17. What the burglars didn't know was that Goldwater, suspecting surveillance, had warned O'Brien to move the documents. They were no longer in the Watergate, but in a safety deposit box in Baltimore, with copies distributed to trusted journalists, with instructions to publish if anything happened to either man. The arrest of the burglars triggered a complex chess game. Nixon, realizing the mission had failed, ordered a cover-up not just to protect his presidency, but to prevent questions about what they were really seeking. Goldwater, understanding that Nixon's desperation made him dangerous, decided on a bold strategy he would help bring down the president to protect the evidence. Nixon's lost it. Goldwater told fellow Republican senators in private meetings, "He's so obsessed with covering up the past that he's destroying the present. We need to cut him loose." Behind the scenes, Goldwater began feeding information to the Washington Post through intermediaries. Not about the Kennedy documents, that was too dangerous, but about the cover-up, the hush money, the obstruction of justice. He knew that once Nixon fell, the pressure to find the Dallas evidence would ease. The strategy worked brilliantly. As Watergate consumed Nixon's presidency, the original mission was forgotten. The public fixated on the cover-up, not what was being covered up. When Nixon's own taping system was revealed, Goldwater knew it was the beginning of the end. But there was one recording Nixon desperately tried to destroy a conversation from the 23rd of July, 1972, where he discussed the real purpose of Watergate with H.R. Haldeman. "Bob, this Goldwater thing, how much does he actually know? Our sources say he has photos from Dallas, physical evidence that Hunt and Sturgis were there. Jesus Christ, if that comes out. It won't. We'll find it. And if we don't, then maybe Goldwater has an accident. Arizona's a dangerous place. Mining accidents, small plane crashes. No, not Barry. That would raise too many questions. But watch him. Every move." This tape, labeled as personal and confidential, was among those Nixon tried to destroy. When he refused to release it, claiming executive privilege, Goldwater made his most decisive move. On the 7th of August, 1974, Goldwater led a delegation of Republican senators to the White House. History records that they told Nixon he lacked support to survive impeachment. What history doesn't record is Goldwater's private conversation with Nixon afterward, revealed only in Goldwater's private papers discovered after his death. "Dick, I know what you were looking for at the Watergate," Goldwater said bluntly. "You're not going to find it. It's beyond your reach now. But if you don't resign immediately, it won't stay hidden. Every newspaper in the country will get copies." "You son of a bitch," Nixon reportedly snarled. "You set me up. This whole thing, you orchestrated it." "No, Dick. You orchestrated it when you decided to break into the DNC. I just made sure you paid the price. Jack Kennedy was my friend. You think I'd let his killers walk free? I didn't kill Kennedy." "No, but you know who did. And you were willing to kill again to keep it secret. That ends now. Resign, or I release everything." Nixon resigned the next day. After Nixon's fall, Goldwater faced a dilemma. Should he release the Kennedy evidence now that the immediate threat was neutralized? He consulted with O'Brien, who advised caution. "The country's been through enough, Barry. Maybe it's time to let sleeping dogs lie." But Goldwater couldn't let it go entirely. In 1975, he provided selective information to the Church Committee investigating intelligence abuses. He pointed them toward CIA, domestic operations, assassination plots, the connections between Watergate figures, and Dallas. The committee's findings vindicated many conspiracy theories without providing definitive proof. Howard Hunt, facing prosecution, tried to bargain with prosecutors. He offered to reveal what we were really looking for at Watergate in exchange for immunity. The offer was rejected on orders from above. Hunt served 33 months in prison, never publicly revealing the truth. But in private letters to his son, discovered in 2001, he wrote, "Watergate wasn't about politics. It was about Dallas. We all knew it. The most dramatic revelation came in 1978 when the House Select Committee on Assassinations was investigating Kennedy's death. Goldwater, sensing a final opportunity, arranged for certain documents to surface. Not the smoking guns, those remained hidden, but enough to conclude that Kennedy was likely killed by a conspiracy. Committee investigator Robert Blakey later said, "We received packages with no return addresses. Photos, documents, recordings. Someone wanted us to find the truth, but wasn't brave enough to stand behind it. We always suspected it was someone high in government." John Dean, granted immunity for his Watergate testimony, came closest to revealing the truth in a 1982 interview. The president was obsessed with documents he believed the Democrats had. He never said what they were, but the urgency was unlike anything else. He once said, "This goes back to Dallas, John. It all goes back to Dallas." As the years passed, participants in the drama began dying off. O'Brien died in 1990, taking the location of some documents to his grave. Hunt died in 2007, but not before making a deathbed confession about his role in the big event code for the Kennedy assassination. He confirmed that Watergate was an attempt to retrieve evidence of that crime. Goldwater lived until 1998, outlasting most of his contemporaries. In his final years, he dropped hints about Watergate's true purpose. Nixon fell because he was looking for something that wasn't meant to be found, he told one interviewer. Sometimes the cover-up isn't about what you did, it's about what others did before you. Shortly before his death, Goldwater met with Bob Woodward, who had broken the Watergate story. According to Woodward's notes, sealed until 2025, Goldwater said, "You got the story half right. You exposed the cover-up, but not what was being covered up. The real crime wasn't the break-in. It was what they were trying to steal and what they were trying to hide." In his will, Goldwater left instructions for the gradual release of documents over 50 years. The first batch, released in 2010, contained peripheral materials memos about surveillance, concerns about Dallas evidence, references to the O'Brien package. More substantial releases are scheduled for 2025 and 2048. But even without the full documentation, enough has emerged to piece together the truth. Watergate wasn't primarily about political espionage. It was about controlling evidence of the Kennedy assassination. Nixon's paranoia wasn't just about losing power, it was about devastating secrets being revealed. The tragedy is that Nixon might have survived if he'd simply left the evidence alone. Goldwater had no immediate plans to release it, understanding its explosive potential, but Nixon's desperate attempt to seize it triggered the very exposure he feared, not of the Kennedy conspiracy, but of his own willingness to commit crimes to hide it. Nixon created his own downfall, Goldwater wrote in an unpublished memoir found in his papers. He could have been a great president. Instead, he chose to protect the killers of a previous president. History will judge him harshly, but not as harshly as it will judge those who pulled the trigger in Dallas. The Watergate complex stands today as a monument to political scandal. Tourists photograph the building, knowing it as the site where Nixon's presidency died. They don't know it was also where the search for Kennedy's killers was buried under layers of newer crimes. In the Democratic National Committee's archives, researchers have found an empty safe with unusual modifications, hidden compartments, sophisticated locks, signs of professional break-in attempts. O'Brien's staff always claimed ignorance about its purpose. But one age secretary, interviewed in 2005, smiled knowingly. Mr. O'Brien and Senator Goldwater knew. They were political opponents who shared a deeper loyalty to the truth. The final irony came in 1994 when Nixon, shortly before his death, reached out to Goldwater for a last meeting. Age and illness had mellowed both men. According to Goldwater's aide, who witnessed part of the conversation, Nixon said, "Barry, I spent my presidency looking for evidence you had. But I realize now you were protecting something more important than documents. You were protecting the country from the truth it wasn't ready to hear." "And are they ready now?" Goldwater asked. Maybe they'll never be ready. Maybe that's why men like us have to carry these secrets to our graves. They shook hands, two old cold warriors who had fought on different sides of a shadow war. Nixon died months later, taking his full knowledge of Dallas to the grave. Goldwater followed 4 years later, but not before ensuring the evidence would survive them both. Today, in various locations around the world, portions of the Goldwater-O'Brien package wait in sealed vaults. Swiss banks, law offices, university archives all hold pieces of the puzzle. The instructions are clear. Release on specific dates or earlier if certain conditions are met. Those who've seen fragments describe photographs that would rewrite history, recordings that would destroy reputations even decades after death, documents that trace the Kennedy assassination from conception to cover-up. They wait patiently for their moment, protected by the elaborate system Goldwater created. The Washington Post's Watergate archives contain an interesting anomaly notes from Deep Throat meetings that were never published. In one, the source tells Woodward, "You're following the right trail, but for the wrong reason. It's not about what Nixon did. It's about what he was trying to find." Follow the Goldwater connection. Woodward focused on bringing down a president never pursued that lead. Decades later, he admitted it was his greatest journalistic regret. "We got the story that changed America," he said, "but we missed the story that would have explained America." As the 50th anniversary of Watergate approaches, historians continue to debate its meaning. The official version, a bungled burglary that exposed presidential corruption, remains dominant. But in intelligence circles, among aging politicians, in the quiet corners where truth whispers, they know better. Watergate was about Dallas. It was about a president so desperate to hide evidence of a predecessor's murder that he destroyed his own presidency. It was about Barry Goldwater, the conservative icon who brought down a Republican president to protect the truth about a Democratic president's assassination. Most of all, it was about how America's darkest secrets have a way of corrupting everyone who touches them. Nixon learned too late that some truths are too dangerous to pursue, some evidence too explosive to possess. He fell not because he was guilty of Kennedy's murder, but because he was guilty of trying to hide it. The real Watergate scandal wasn't the crime, it was what the crime was meant to conceal. And somewhere, in vaults and safes and hidden places, the evidence waits still. Patient as justice deferred, explosive as truth delayed. When it finally emerges, America will understand that its greatest political scandal was just a sideshow to its greatest unsolved murder. Until then, Watergate remains what Nixon made it, a cover-up of a cover-up, a crime that hid a greater crime, a lie that protected an even bigger lie. And Barry Goldwater, the man who orchestrated a president's fall to protect a president's legacy, remains the unsung hero of a story America isn't ready to hear. The tapes keep spinning in the National Archives. The documents wait in their vaults. The truth, as always, remains patient. Because in the end, as both Nixon and Goldwater knew, the truth about Dallas would emerge. The only question was whether America would be strong enough to handle it when it did.